Today, we're going to be doing a guided meditation with a focus on looking our anxiety in the eye and sitting with it. This is probably the most important lesson I could give you from my own experience with anxiety. When we run away from something, it magnifies our fear, and anxiety is simply a form of fear. But when we stop and look our fear in the eye, it diminishes. And the fear's power over us diminishes as well. So we must begin this practice with a firm commitment to always stand our ground and look our anxiety in the eye. With that being said, let's settle into our practice right here, right now, by taking a few seconds of silence to feel our bodies, to hear the sound of my voice and any other sounds you may be hearing, to feel your feet on the ground and perhaps your hips, legs, calves, and the chair or seat you're in. Notice your breath going in and out. What you'll notice with anxiety is that it has a physical component, and that over time, if we pay attention to our body, we can notice this physical component of anxiety and use that to realize when we're feeling anxious. Because without awareness of anxiety, it can be very difficult to look it in the eye. For me, it feels like my neck and shoulders are rising and becoming tight, and it feels like my neck is being constricted, almost like I'm suffocating or someone's trying to choke me. It can be a very unpleasant experience. A tightness in the chest. However, you may have your own physical manifestations of anxiety. Just do your best to pay attention to them when you realize you're feeling anxious. So now we're going to speak to our anxiety, and we're going to thank it. And we're thanking our anxiety because it does not come from a place of wanting to hurt or harm ourselves. Our anxiety exists because of evolution, because anxiety was a way that we would keep ourselves alive in our earlier environment that we humans faced. So when we're anxious about the bills or the health of ourselves or a loved one, we can bring thanks to our anxiety and say, thank you for raising this issue and bringing awareness to it. Now that you've done your job, I can act on this information in peace and calm with effectiveness. This approach works very well for two reasons. One, we are accepting our anxiety, the fact that it exists, which is the first and most important step. Two, we are non-violently fighting against our anxiety. And fighting is almost the wrong word because really it's a positive relationship. But we're using that anxiety in the most productive and effective way possible. And a good way to think of it is as if you're having tea or if you prefer coffee or even a beer with your anxiety. Because you're sitting with it. You're speaking to it. You're looking in the eye and having a relationship with it. that can turn out to be a win-win. So on days when I'm feeling very anxious and other things aren't working, I'll say, hold on, anxiety, I want to speak with you. Let's have tea. And I'll just visualize myself sipping tea, smiling, while this cloaked, shadowy form of anxiety sits across from me. And I ask anxiety, how are you doing today? And he usually says, I'm feeling pretty anxious, which is what you would expect. And I'll say, I wish the best for you, and I appreciate you're here right now, but I don't need your services anymore. I'm pretty aware of the problems I face in my life, and I'm doing the best that I can in the present moment to act upon that information. And that's usually the end of the interaction. But don't take my word for it. This is just what has worked with my experience. Try to find your own way of seeing your anxiety clearly for what it is, noticing the physical manifestations of anxiety when it arises in your life, and then looking that anxiety in the eye and saying, thank you, but I don't need you anymore. Let's take a few more seconds to just be present and realize that when we aren't scared of anxiety and we don't run away from it, we limit its ability to hurt us, to cause us harm. As they say in Buddhism, a useful idea from Buddhism, there's pain and there's suffering. Pain can never go away. Pain is part of life. Pain is a negative emotion, an undesirable emotion such as anxiety. But suffering happens when we choose to hold on to that pain or use it in unskillful or not efficient ways, such as buying into anxiety's story, focusing on it and repeating it over and over again. Instead, we can accept the pain of anxiety as a fact of living. We can gain what is useful from it, and then we can move on. Thank you for participating in this meditation with me today.